Well, I think the easiest thing to do is to speak out. But number one, don't let an injustice go by and turn your head.
What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Emily Eamon, and you're watching Big Ten Volley Talk, a digital web show where I give you the latest news, insights, and updates into everything Big Ten volleyball. Now, many sports personnel across the Big Ten are coming out and addressing the events that have been happening across the country after the murder of George Floyd. One coach in particular put out a heartfelt and powerful statement on Twitter to address the racism that is embedded in our society today. To talk about this, among other things, let's welcome Purdue volleyball head coach Dave Shondell. Well, welcome Purdue head coach Dave Shondell. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks, Emily. As we've talked about, I'm happy that you've started this new venture, and hopefully it will build into something big, and that you'll get a nice following, and it will help Big Ten and volleyball across the country.
Yeah, that's a goal. Build the follow base of the Big Ten and volleyball in general. So I appreciate it. Yeah, to get started. You recently put out a really heartfelt and powerful message on Twitter. Sort of directly addressing the racism in our country and things that have been going on. What were your initial thoughts in writing that statement?
Well, number one, be real careful, because when you're in a public position like I am, you just can't fly by the seat of your pants and put stuff out there. But I knew we had some players in our program and a lot of alumni that were feeling the pain and sorrow of, what it's like to be Black in America. And so I certainly felt like it was important to reach out to them and certainly show support. But I think people that are in any kind of leadership positions need to be vocal. They need to let people know. And just give you some background. My sister, who's a couple years older than me, married a Black man, and they have 4 Black daughters, and all 4 were Division I volleyball players, and they're all doing great. But I've been exposed to some of the challenges and difficulties that can create for a long time, and it's done nothing but make me better, and it's done nothing but make our family better because of that. And then my daughter, who played volleyball for us at Purdue, married a wonderful Black man. His name was Tamir. We call him Tamiracle because he changed the life of my daughter, and has made just a great situation. She has 4 kids, 3 sons. And so, I may have a little bit more invested than the average, white man. But, I've always, my dad and mom, raised us to look at everybody the same. And we all have hidden bias. That's something that people have to understand. We all have hidden bias, but it's how you behave. And it's how you respond to things. It's not necessarily what you think at first impact. It's how are you going to respond and how are you going to act. And I think that's the one thing that we have to do now is we have to act. And putting out a little post is not the end of it. For those of us that are doing that, we have to be creative and find ways to help this situation, to end this racism, because it's bigger than even what some people see. Some people see these things. I know you just asked me one question and I'm going a long time, but it's a lot more than just what they've seen on TV. And like I said, I have been aware of that and exposed to that, not like Black people, but I've seen it and I've understood it a little bit. But we have to do something. And, as a coach, we've had great communication with our team. And whether they're white or Black, our entire team is invested in this mission, in this purpose. One of my players, Mo Horning, who from New Albany area, that played at Union Volleyball Club and played at Providence High School. She does this thing on Mondays called Mondays with Mo for our social media. And just before we got on, she texted us. She said, "Hey, we need to do something about this issue on Mo's Mondays with Mo. It can't just be some fun, goofy thing." And I said, "You're right." And so I think we're all trying to do something besides, post a Black picture right now on our social media. But there's so much more we have to do, and we have to be invested. We have to be committed for the long haul, not just for this week.
Yeah, that statement that we're referring to, part of it reads, "It's very difficult for a 62-year-old white man to genuinely understand the emotions of my Black brothers and sisters. That said, it's a long, long past time for change, and you're willing to be part of the solution." And then you talk about how it's, coming from 100% suspect leadership. So as your team's leader and a leader in your community, what are you and your program kind of doing to show that you're working toward progress, aside from, posting on social media and raising awareness, but what are you kind of doing to take that one step further?
I think, first of all, you have to show support. You have to let them know that it's okay to do that right now. I mean, I'm talking about being responsible. I'm not talking about breaking windows and, looting stores. I'm talking about, marching, reaching out to people, making posts that make sense and that are going to be productive. This is about productive leadership. And as I mentioned, I don't have all the answers right now, but I do think that as we move forward with our team this season, there has to be things that we're going to do collectively. I mean, any Big Ten athletic program, I think, carries some weight. I think they have there's a platform for our athletes to do things, and we're always looking. What can we do productive? How can we help younger people, older people, people out there that need help? We've all been pretty lucky. If you're at a Big Ten institution, whether you're a coach or you're a player, and you know what I'm talking about, you're pretty lucky. You're fortunate. And there's so many people less fortunate than us. And so whether it's Black America, whether it's people that don't have money, that whatever it might be, we need to be there for everybody. And this is one project that everyone needs to take hold of.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about how leaders at all levels kind of need to step up and get in front of the racism in our country right now. And a lot of other programs, across the country have been remaining silent and not standing up for their Black athletes who they fight for on the court every day and, in the classroom every day, but are sort of refusing to do that in a societal way. You've obviously used your platform to be a voice and to stand up for your Black student athletes in the Black community. But what role do you think kind of other coaches and administrations have regarding social activism and, for fighting for change?
Tough question, Emily. I mean, we don't know what people are doing. Just because we haven't seen it, it doesn't mean that there's not support out there. And I'm not sure that all athletic directors and all head coaches feel comfortable going to social media like others do. So I'm not going to be quick to judge other people because we haven't heard from them. I think there's a lot of different ways. Everybody has their lane. I read that this week. Everybody has their lane that they can be helpful and they can do what they need to do. And because I feel like I've got a following on social media, and I felt the need. Basically, I felt compelled to do something. And that was my avenue. That was my lane for right now to do that. I wanted our players, our former players and our current players to know that I support them. And I think that's step one. But there's a lot of different ways you can do that without going on social media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of, new athletes and just personnel in sports kind of stepping up and, just showing support one way or another. How do you think sports as a whole can be part of that solution, whether it's volleyball or, another sport?
Well, I think the easiest thing to do is to speak out. But number one, don't let an injustice go by and turn your head. And I think that's what we have done. And, I'm not a political guy, and I'm not going to get into that conversation. But I think when we see things that are not being done in this country, we need to respond. And we can't continue to say, well, that's going to be okay. And I think really that this, latest, senseless or ridiculous death of a Black man in Minneapolis. I just think that the George Floyd situation has put us over the top, and that's great. And why it didn't before, when the other things happen like that, I don't know. But let's hope that this is it, because it's just not right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate, your thoughts on the topic and being able to kind of elaborate further. I want to sort of switch gears into how, you're creating and emphasizing a great culture at Purdue. So with the recruiting dead period extending through July, how are you and your coaching staff still working to get the best possible players for the future with all the current restrictions?
Well, we're pretty fortunate that we have a good class coming in this fall, and then we have 4 athletes committed in the class of 2021. And so we did a lot of legwork early because we saw the new rules coming, that they made some major changes in sports like volleyball to where you can't have any contact with athletes that are not juniors, okay, or juniors or seniors. And so we got ahead of that a little bit. So we feel comfortable. We've got 8 really good players coming in the next 2 years. I think that just being calm and patient and not losing your mind over the situation where we can't recruit now, and you've got all these high school kids that are wanting to be recruited, and they're wanting to know who's interested in them and who's going to make an offer to them, and hopefully June 15th that process will begin. But we can't be out watching teams play, even though there's not a lot of that going on right now. You can't even watch a practice through the end of July, and so hopefully in August the NCAA will allow us to go out. But there's a lot of programs. Mid-major, smaller Division I schools are for the most part, are in a tougher situation because they don't have those juniors. Like we're done with 2021 class. A lot of people aren't. And so, I mean, every player that wants to play is going to find a spot to play. But until, as a coach, you've got your people lined up, you're going to be a little panicky. And but I think that we've been able to send, what you can do is communicate with the club and high school coaches. So we have tried to send enough information that's effective, but not too much, to make sure that the players that were really interested, hopefully will get that information. But there's a lot of new rules that handcuff you as a coach, and you just have to adjust the rules that the NCAA puts forward.
Mm-hmm. What would you kind of tell a younger player going through recruiting, or, a high school player that wants to get recruited? What would you tell them to kind of do right now?
Well, reach out to those schools that they think are going to be a good fit for them. And they really need to get guidance from their club coach, their high school coach, people who understand what level that they're playing at. It doesn't do you a lot of good just to send out information to everybody, because you need to know, number one, what areas in the country do you want to go to school? What are you looking for in your college? And then you send information, send videos out of yourself. I can watch a video of a player and in 30 seconds know, okay, that player probably isn't for Purdue, or wait a minute, we really need to watch this kid some more. We need to get more familiar with her. And that's really all it takes. And then it's our job then as a staff to communicate somehow back through those people, even though some of them we can't communicate directly with because they're under the age that we can. But hopefully their club coaches will let them know that, yeah, we think that you might be a fit. We're going to continue to look at you, or, you probably need to look somewhere else. But I think they have a role and a responsibility, and the more organized they are and the more pertinent information they provide and the better the video that they send you is going to help. And I suggest just a video highlight. I don't need to see a match where they're not touching the ball, for a minute at a time. What I want to do is I just want to see their highlights. I want to watch their skill highlights from a competitive match, and then we'll know right away whether they're going to be somebody capable of playing at the Big Ten level.
Yeah. You come from one of the most well-known volleyball families in the area, if not the country. You have a dad and a brother who are both in the AVCA Hall of Fame. How did they shape you as a coach, and how do you kind of continue to learn from them?
Yeah, good homework by you on that AVCA call. That was good. Well, your dad's going to shape you more than probably anybody in the world. And I was fortunate that, my dad was a teacher and a coach at Ball State University. He started the men's volleyball program at Ball State. They and UCLA were the first 2 men's programs in the country. And it's been neat because there have been so many tremendous coaches, whether it be college, high school, club, that have gone through Ball State. I mean, we like to say more than anybody else in the country. But Ball State was a teacher's college. And so many people that went to Ball State were in education. They stayed in education. So they went into the area of coaching, and they're still out there. And I could give you a long list, but I'm not going to do that right now. But My dad was a guy that loved what he did. I mean, there wasn't a day he didn't love going to work. And so I always felt like, following that lead was going to be really important. And he was a great visionary, and he knew what he wanted. And to be able to start a men's volleyball program at Ball State, of all places, when volleyball's hotbed was in California, and then Muncie, Indiana is going to have the second men's volleyball program in the country, and then turn it into a very successful, the second winningest program in the country at Ball State in the history of men's volleyball. And then my brother Steve, who you probably know, Steve, I think, is the best technical coach in the country. He's amazing on his ability to teach the game to youngsters of all ages, whether it was at Ball State, where he was the head coach, or at Muncie Burris, where he was high school, or where he coached 12 and unders and 14 unders with Muncie and volleyball. I just learned so much about coaching and teaching and being positive. Both my dad and my brother come from the mindset that they're going to be positive. There's not going to be any negativity in how they coach, and they're going to make it fun, and there's going to be some discipline, but it's going to be positive. And so, I mean, those are some things that I've learned. So, I mean, if I'm successful, it's because I've been surrounded by people that were really, really good at what they did. And then as I've moved on to Purdue, then my younger brother, John, has been my assistant coach at Purdue now for 17 years. And he's a lot like Steve. Those two are a lot alike in how they operate. And because he's so good in the gym, it's allowed me at times to maybe go away from focusing on the training and being able to recruit. And, our recruiting success has been pretty good as well. Because if you're not recruiting in the Big Ten at a high level, you're getting beat a lot. And nobody wants to get beat.
Yeah. Well, we're about to talk about a win. So we have to talk about your 4-set win in the tournament against number 16 Marquette, which shot you guys to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2013. You guys lost the first set and then came back and won the next 3. And I'm sort of wondering, what did you tell your team after that first set to get them to rally back and fire up to take the next 3?
Well, Marquette was a really good team and very well coached. And I think they came in with a pretty good plan. I thought our players were a little tight. This was a match that we've been looking to all season. This was a team at Purdue that our goal was not to get beat in the second round, which we had for the 4 previous seasons. I mean, it's great to say you've been to the second round of the NCAA tournament, but we're better than that. And we needed to move beyond that. And so I think that our kids were a little bit tight, a little bit nervous. And what I always try to do, first step, is just calm people down and get them to focus back on, what is our game plan? What are we trying to accomplish? What are they doing to hurt us? And it was mostly our mistakes at that point in time. I think both teams made more errors in the first set than they did in any of the sets after that. And then we just played at a very high level in the next 3. We were playing really good volleyball late in the season a year ago. We had won, I think, 11 of our last 13 Big Ten matches, and then we won the first 2 matches in the Big Ten before running into number 1 Baylor at Baylor. And they were a handful that day at Baylor.
Yeah. All right, to finish up, I kind of want to get into your high, low, and humor of quarantine. So a high moment, a low moment, and then something funny that happened during your stay-at-home time.
Okay, there's been a lot of that. I mean, I was pretty much quarantined for about 8 weeks. I was playing it really, really close to the vest. But I think the height would be that I got to spend more time in the last 3 months with my wife than I have in any 3-month period of our 41-year marriage. And so to get to know her and spend time with her, and of course my dog, Mackie May, we take lots of walks together. And it was just kind of, I think the best part for everybody was that they got to get reacquainted with their families. And that's just something that in our society doesn't happen much anymore, unless you've got leadership in your house that's saying, you're going to sit down for dinner with us tonight, we're going to do this. Otherwise, everybody's all over the place. And so I thought that was a real high point for me. I think the low point was obviously, over 104,000 people died in our country. And so that's devastating. There are people I knew that have passed away. We have a father of one of our players that was very close to dying, Tom Skimmerhorn. And, fortunately that for the grace of God, he recovered, and he's back, and he's an athletic director up in Northern Indiana, and he's doing well. The other thing is that my father is 91 years old. He's in an assisted living home near Munson. He can't even get out of his room. He can't walk out of his room. His family can't go see him. And I've brought this up on Twitter before, that we need to be reaching out to these people. We have this past week we did a Zoom call with my dad, which is always interesting because somebody has to help him get on the video. But
Figuring out how to set it up at all. The same thing with my grandparents.
And so it was pretty neat that almost our entire family, lots of kids and his grandkids and their kids. So it's 4 generations. We're all on this Zoom call, and it was one of the funnest things to see. So that was, yeah.
Well, great. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us and, sharing your thoughts and everything and giving us insights into last season as well as what you're doing right now. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Best of luck with everything, Emily.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.